Well, a good Friday to all. Mark here from Exel, and in a few minutes' time, all being well, decanter for July 2020 is due out. The star feature this month is Italian traditional method fizz, and I have one of the wines here, the one that we are rather majoring on, from Deltetto. Now, it's an Alta Langa. Let's try something. Alta Langa. Alexa, where is Alta Langa?
You're in Pollokshields East, Glasgow, Scotland.
All of which is interesting, but I think Alexa, like me, had no real idea of where Alta Langa was. It's not something we run into very often, even when you study, as I have done, Italian trad method fizz. It's a little tiny appellation up in the north, pretty much on top of Barolo and Barbaresco. I'm not going to talk too much about how it's made, what it does, because that's all in the blog for Decanter this month. What I'm going to do is just taste it and see how it goes, because the big question I think with any traditional method fizz, and again this features in the blog, is why would you drink this and not champagne? Well, this is the bottle. Here's one I opened earlier, in fact quite a bit earlier. This has been open 3-4 hours. You'll notice I'm not drinking it in a champagne flute. I rather refuse to drink fizz in champagne flutes. I mean, you look at it and, you know, in your ball gown or your black tie drinking it, but honestly it's not the best way to savour the drink. You get no nose on it. You get to see the bubbles in a nice long column, but it's not the best way to try. Anyway, this is better. Any old wine glass. And how does it differ from champagne? Well, it's funny. On the nose, immediately, it's fresher, it's more vital, it's more zingy, and it's also riper, I would say. What, if you normally have a sniff of champagne, I would say is it's much more citric in flavour, or on the nose rather. And more with that, there's normally quite an oxidative smell. Even on fresh, only just degorged or disgorged champagnes, you tend to get this slightly oxidative flavour. This, on the nose, it has that kind of freshness and punch of Prosecco. Now, making any comparison between champagne and Prosecco doesn't normally help you sell a wine, but this has that freshness, but it also has that complexity, that brioche-y, bready flavour on the nose that you typically associate with traditional method fizz. In the mouth, it is also riper than most champagnes. Not all by any means, but there is a ripeness to that. The acidity of it is extremely refreshing. It is, I would argue, a slightly fresher glass of wine than most champagnes. I think some will say it's not as complex, that for all of the breadiness and for all of the secondary stuff that comes on from that secondary fermentation, that it doesn't hit you with quite as much complexity. And I think in that regard it is different. I'm not convinced it remains as uncomplex. Actually, having left this open now 4 or 5 hours, actually there's a lot more to it. And another thing I would say is don't serve it too cold. I had this straight out of the fridge earlier. Honestly, it was too cold. It needs a little bit of time open in the air. But it's a fascinating glass. I honestly think for the £22 I think we're asking for this, you'd be really hard pushed to find a champagne that's anything like as good. I mean, okay, our Pierre Bertrand is pretty close to it. It's a pretty fascinating glass of wine. For anyone fearing that if you digress into something that is trad method, but not from champagne, you're into wines that are not fabulous, well, this I think stands, yeah, very definitely as an argument against that. It's fresh, it's enjoyable, it's great with food, it's got enough complexity to it. I think it will age brilliantly. The acidity there, the fact that this is a high proportion of Chardonnay, this is a wine that's going to go on and on. And I think, is it worth its decanter 95 points? I would say so. Try it and see.